Hey, all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking and Travel Podcast. My name is Darren, of course, and today we're going to have a guest we've had on before, Mr. John Setzler of ManCave Meals. And we're going to talk about all things pizza. I'll be right back with John Setzler. Welcome to the Fire and Water Cooking and Travel Podcast, where we discuss all things food, cooking, and travel related. Join us as we discuss all different types of cooking methods, cooking styles, all different types of food and restaurants. And of course, we'll talk about travel as it relates to foodie travel, like cruises, all different kinds of food tours, and all that. We'll have on special guests to talk about cooking methods and cooking styles, and also travel. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Well, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking and Travel Podcast. I have an old favorite of mine, a friend of mine from way back, Mr. John Setzler of ManCave Meals. We've been friends for about six years or so now, John. So
something like that.
Just wanted to get John on because we're both enthusiasts to an extent. We both kind of dabble in the YouTube stuff and videos, but we just do it because we love to cook and love to eat and love to have fun and want to share it with people. We don't really do it for the money. But John, go ahead and introduce yourself briefly and tell people who you are and what you do and all that.
Okay. My name's John Setzler. I live in Valdez, North Carolina, a little small town in the western part of the state in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And I've been into barbecue and smoking for 12 years or so. And I've been doing that so heavily and for so long that I'm kind of ready for a change. And I've kind of shifted my own direction toward pizza and bread here in the last few months. And but I still run all my grills and smokers. I'm just not pointing the camera at them anymore.
Yeah, and like I said, everybody, he has the ManCave Meals YouTube channel, also on Facebook and Instagram. Just follow ManCave Meals. You'll see John and all the different stuff that he does. You can go back years when he first started barbecue. I mean, just like my YouTube channel, and people don't go back to the very beginning of what I started doing and what I'm doing now. We all evolve, we all change. That's kind of what I like. I don't want to just sit and do one thing forever and I don't eat one food, one cooked one way because it's boring. So I think we all can grow and do different things. So you started out with the passion of cooking outdoors and you really still do a lot of that, but we also cook indoors. But I think the outdoor cooking phenomenon has grown over the years, and it just seems that but every time you turn around, there's a new cooker out there. There's a new, something new that people are gravitating towards. So over the last few years, what are some of the things that you've latched onto or that you like that's come out of that?
Oh man, that's tough. My problem is that I'm a sucker for a cool gadget. I'm a sucker for tech in general. And it's funny because I'm a sucker for it. I want to understand how it works and how the what makes things tick. But I'm not as quick to recommend them in the long run. One of the things lately that's got my attention is the wireless temperature probes. Things like the meter, of course, the wireless Wi-Fi and Bluetooth temperature probes. I've been playing around with those for a while. I've played around with 4 or 5 different competitors to that so I can get a feel for how well they work. And there's a couple of new ones coming down the pipe from ThermoWorks. They have their RFX, and this new most recent announcement from Fireboard has my attention as well. I'm a big fan of the Fireboard thermometers and temperature control systems that I use on my Kamado grills. I'm a big fan of that. So I can tell you already that I'm going to buy the Fireboard when it comes out. I probably won't buy the ThermoWorks, but that's not to diminish it in any way. I just know I really like the user interface and the user experience with the Fireboard app and software. So I know I'm going to buy at least one of the Fireboard probes. And once again, I'm fascinated by stuff like that. I don't I'm not the first guy on the block to recommend them, but I'm the first guy on the block to buy one when it comes available. If
Yeah,
that
and
makes sense.
I'm that way too, and I think we're both alike that way. We see things that can help improve the process and the end result. That's what we're looking for. It's not just it's a new toy,
Right.
it's more of, well, I can see how that can produce better food or make it easier for me to produce better food. So,
Well, that's
you
just it. With these wireless probes, I don't think they offer me any advantage whatsoever.
yeah.
I cannot put my finger on an advantage. The only advantage I can see with a wireless temperature probe is cooking on a rotisserie, which I do
Yeah.
very rarely. I do that so rarely. I have absolutely zero justification for owning a wireless temperature probe.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that because I've tested out a few of those, from even the beginnings, and the biggest problem you have with those, especially when you're using a Kamada grill and you got the thick ceramic, is the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi not penetrating,
Right.
so it messes it up, or you can't, you're in the house and you can't read it or whatever.
I
So I think,
strongly recommend people stay away from Bluetooth. The only
yeah,
ones I would ever come close to recommending are the ones that make the Wi-Fi connection.
yeah. So we could do a whole nother episode on that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And I think
that
we've done
that
that
is
in
a
the past. We've done it
that's a
in the
rabbit
past.
hole of its own.
Yeah, we've done it in the past, but the thing of it is that it always changing and there's
It
always new
is.
stuff to talk about. But we're going to focus on pizza today because just like that, there's new gadgets and ovens and things coming out with pizza for people cooking on the backyard. So what makes pizza like barbecue such a compelling food for people to not just cook, but eat and try and get all excited about?
Well, I think the simple answer to that question is pizza has a lot larger audience, in my opinion, than barbecue and grilling. Uh, I've met very few people that I can think of that won't eat pizza in one form or another. And there's a lot of people I know that aren't fans of barbecue, right, and grilled foods. But pizza, I think, has a worldwide appeal, and barbecue's not so much. I mean, every culture has cooked meat, but it's approached differently. It's different here in the United States, I believe, with barbecue, and some other countries like Australia and the UK. It's uh, what they do a lot of the same sort of things we do here, but when you get into other parts of the world, uh, the grilling and smoking culture is a bit different.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
pizza's the same worldwide.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their pizzas, and I can't think of any culture that I know of right off the top of my head that doesn't make pizza or something similar to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm going to share my screen here in a minute once we get down the road and talk about the various different kinds because there's so many that I even didn't even know about. But if you look, I mean, just starting from when we were in school and you had the little English muffin pizzas or whatever they are
Mm-hmm.
at the cafeteria, pizza's been around for a long, long time. And like you said, all cultures have some kind of cooked bread product with stuff on it. No matter where you go, you're going to find something that looks like or is kind of related to pizza.
Yep.
So let's talk about that then. Let's, because like I said, because you can go to various parts of the country and they have their own kind, just like, I mean, you can really break it down anything. Barbecue, hot dogs, even, different parts of
Mm-hmm.
the country have their different types of hot dogs, what they put on them, and pizza is no different. And you just got back from a trip to New York City with your wife, which I kind of followed you guys on Facebook, and that's known for a certain type of pizza. So did you enjoy some pizza when you were in New York City?
I did. We had pizza two or three different times. I did not chase down any of the more iconic
Uh-huh.
locations for pizza. I think the best pizza that I had while I was there was at a place called Angelo's, and it's a coal-fired
Hmm.
pizza oven place that's it's kind of in the lobby of or in the front of the Ed Sullivan Theater on Broadway.
Yeah.
That pizza was phenomenal. It was cooked very well, and it had an aroma to it that's not even like a wood fired. There is a difference if a coal fired oven, if you ever get a chance to have pizza from one of those. But yeah, I'm a New York pizza's in my top three of my favorite styles of pizza.
Well, and like you said, though, I had Angelo's has got a couple locations. I went to the one that was more towards Central Park, and
Right.
but you do even in New York, it's just not New York pizza because you got some that have the coal-fired ovens. You have some that
Mhm.
the dollar slice pizzas are totally different than one type. You can go to one different place, get a totally different type of pizza than the guy next door. So the
Yep.
Neapolitan style, there's some Neapolitan style that are more towards the, right from Italy type stuff. And then you got some guys that from Jersey that kind of moved up there. You got some guys that came down from New Haven and kind of
Mhm.
are mixing it up. So you can go to five different places in New York City and get five different types of pizza. I mean, one of the places we went to when we were up there, we went to Joe's Pizza, which is kind of famous. And then right around the block, you got John's of Bleecker and
Right.
totally different pizzas, but both really good. So, I don't think I've ever had a bad pizza unless it was,
Mhm.
a frozen pizza. So,
And they're edible.
oh yeah, and
I've never thrown one of those away.
yeah, I mean, and like I said, you can go anywhere, and the different types of pizzas what really blows my mind. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I think that this just kind of says it all. I mean, if you look here, I mean, look at all these different types of pizza, and some of them, you might not even consider pizza, like the calzone, but it's got its births in pizza. It's got the sauce, it's got the toppings, it's got the dough that's just folded over instead of laid out. And you got New Haven, which is like you said, the coal-fired ovens that it's cooked a little bit more hotter. They use different cheese. They use, a thinner crust that's made with a different type of flour. The, the thin crust tavern style pizza in Chicago. Plus, Chicago's got the deep dish, the big thick, bready with all the stuff in it and all the sauce. Detroit style, which is kind of like a Sicilian, but different, so I mean, there are so many different types of just in the US, besides when you go to other countries, um, the French bread pizza, like I said, from the beginning, going to school and you get the little pizzas that are either made on English muffins or just the individuals, everything you can imagine. It's just crazy to me. Uh, the Swedish one here kind of blew my mind where they put bananas on it. So
Mhm.
I mean, that's the kind of thing you'll have different cultures will put different things on the pizza or they'll make it with different flours and all that. What is your favorite right now, your go-to to make it home?
I am probably that my favorite type of pizzas and have been in a constant state of flux since I started making pizza. But right now, I'm a Detroit style pizza fan. I've I spent the first part of my new journey perfecting my own Detroit style pan pizza, which I'm pretty happy with the results I've gotten on that. The I like the thick crust. I like the process, and um, I like the flavors that are made from making that pizza. It's definitely right as of today. Detroit's my favorite for sure.
So let's discuss that a little bit. Compare it to just say a regular New York thin crust cheese pizza. The the Detroit style is kind of like a Sicilian. It's a square rectangle in a pan, but the benefits of that pan is not just that it makes it thicker. It's that you put the cheese on top and it kind of goes down the side and it gets it like really nice and crispy and
Yep.
crunchy. And the dough, it's got to be kind of a special dough. It can't be really, really thick. It's got to be kind of airy and light. You don't want it to be super heavy, uh,
Right.
like the deep dish, pizzas that they make in Chicago. It's got to be where you can eat it and not go,
Yep.
man, bust your belly. It's got to be nice and airy. And they put the sauce on the top. Don't know, I don't know if that really makes a big difference or why they do it that way, but it's definitely unique the way Detroit is made. If you look at it, the traditional Detroit pizza, it's totally different than some of the other deep dish pizzas. And like you said, I like it that way too. You know, uh, I like to switch it up. There's some days I'm in the mood for a thin crust New York. There's sometimes I'm in the mood for a thicker. Sometimes I'll get the stuffed crust, from
Mhm.
from Pizza Hut. But I definitely like the Detroit style as well. So, what is the main thing you like about it? Is that crunch that you get around the edge, or
Yes, that's one of the top things for sure, because it brings back memories for me growing up as a child. When my mom, one of the things that my mom used to make for me fairly regularly, simply because I asked for it, was this simple thing called cheese toast. If you know what I'm talking about, where you take a slice of Wonder Bread, put a slice of American cheese on top of it, and throw it under a broiler, melt the cheese, and toast the edges of the bread. Well, I was a little different because at one point, mom left them in the oven too long, and that cheese puffed up and browned all the way across the top and made this bubble. And I ate it. And after that, that's how I wanted my cheese toast done all the time. That browned bit of cheese, that caramelization that happens there is a fantastic element of this Detroit style pizza. When you stuff that cheese around the edges of that dough in the pan where the cheese actually makes contact with the pan, that cheese browns up like that and it gets crispy and it brings that flavor profile to the pizza that you don't typically get on any other kind of pizza.
yeah,
The other aspect I like, obviously, you talked about the dough, the airiness of the dough. This is a high hydration dough. I like making mine up around 80%. And the higher hydration creates that more open crumb. And I like to do the long ferment. I make a poolish and then do a 24 to 48-hour cold ferment on that poolish before I make my dough into the pan, and that flavor develops. And it's a process for me. The hands-on process of making pizza is something I really enjoy, and the Detroit style pizza is a good way to practice that. And because of some of the things I do, I don't know that I can call my Detroit style pizza authentic in any way, but we'll just call it a ManCave style Detroit pizza.
well, and here's the thing, and I've always thought this way, and I know you have to some extent. There's the people that always say it's got to be traditional,
Mhm.
like with barbecue, because this is me and you are. This is where you get it from, is the barbecue aspect, is the
Right.
process. That's why
Yep.
you like the process of the pizza, because you like getting your hands dirty, figuring out why is the dough different if you do it this way, or the hydration, or the different types of flour, and let me see how I can make it my way. That's all the way I've always thought about cooking is, you know, okay, this is the way they do it here, and this is what they say it should be. Let me
Mhm.
just tweak it to see it to my different flavors, the way I like things, and see if I can play
Exactly.
around with it. Yeah. So
Well, cooking in general is as much of an art as it is a science. Baking baking requires ingredient combinations to be in the right ratios to get the results you're looking for. But when I say right, that is followed by to get the result you're looking for. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and you have to
yeah,
make it the way you like it. But experimenting with those ratios teaches you a lot, and it gives you the flexibility of changing the way that crust comes out. Use more flour, use more water. Salt is an ingredient that changes the texture of the crust also, so you can use more or less of that. Um, Olive oil. I've been experimenting with this ingredient lately called diastatic malt powder, which is an interesting thing. It kind of turbocharges the yeast and allows the yeast to become a little more hungry, I
Active.
guess you might say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes the yeast perform a lot better. I've been playing around with a little bit of that, but it's it's because I enjoy, like I said, I enjoy the process here.
Yeah, because you like to experiment. Like I said,
Mm.
barbecue is that same way because I think one of the biggest things I see people, they just think you just throw a brisket on and smoke it for this, and they don't understand the whole process. We love to understand the process, and I think pizza is the same way. How to get that particular type of dough, or how you cook it, or the temperature you cook it at, the pan you cook it in. The Detroit, style is really, the pan is one of the biggest aspects of it because it
Right.
has to have the big edges so you can have it grow and still have some room at the top of the pan
Hmm.
that it's not coming out the top, so it'll get those edges on the side that make it so desirable, so it really does. A lot of those things come into it. So
Hey, all, it's Darren. I want to make sure you check out Fire and Water Cooking Edible Creations, Seasonings, and Sauces. The black garlic we use is the highest quality domestic black garlic you can find, from the black garlic and herb compound butter to the blueberry and black garlic to our all-purpose black garlic and our black garlic and coffee seasoning. All are amazing, made with the highest quality ingredients. You can find them on Amazon, Walmart.com, and on fireandwatercooking.com. Check them out, guys.
So let's talk about, since there are so many different pizzas and places, how do you see yourself ever trying to schedule a trip or make a trip going around and trying different types of pizza?
I don't know if I ever make it to Italy. I would spend a good bit of time chasing pizza there. I'm not so sure about here in the U.S. because there's only one pizza place here in the U.S. that I've ever had any particular desire to visit. And my wife and I hit that on our honeymoon road trip about 6 years ago. We went to Frank Pepe in New Haven. And
New Haven.
that was an experience. I wasn't totally blown away with what I got there, but I was there at a bad time. We were there later in the evening on a weeknight, and I got the feeling that whoever made my pizza didn't love their job. The flavors were good, but I left Frank Pepe a little underwhelmed. I would like to give it another chance. I would like to visit that again, but it's just not. I'm a long way from New Haven. That's a long haul from here. And if I'm ever back up that way, I'm going to try to stop in there at a more appropriate time, more in their dinner hour, maybe than we were in there at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the evening, and they were going to be closing within the hour. But I had that clam pizza. That's a signature pizza that they make, and they made famous. And I was very impressed with the flavor of that. And I made a few at home afterwards. But as far as planning a trip, I wouldn't know where to start here in the United States. I guess probably if I was going to plan a pizza trip here in the United States, I would pick a style of pizza that I wanted to visit. And then I would go to a place where a lot of those are available, like New York City, for instance. If I wanted to, there's unlimited. You couldn't begin to visit all of the great pizza opportunities in New York City in any short amount of time, even outside the city, even over in New Jersey. Over in there's that style of pizzas everywhere up there, and you'll go in any New York pizza shop, and like you said before, they'll have the classic New York style pizza, but most of the good shops are going to have Sicilian as well. They're going to have. Yeah. I saw Sicilian. I saw grandma pies in some of the shops we went in. I even saw. I'm going to call it a New York version of a margarita. Because they were making a margarita on a New York dough. And in fact, the coal-fired pizza that Tanya and I got at Angelo's was a margarita that we added pepperoni to. So, yeah, that's what they called their margarita.
And when you go to some place like New York City, it's known for pizza, but it's known for so much other stuff. So, I usually will like when we go to New York, we're going there for other stuff too, but I incorporate things like that. Okay, today's going to be pizza day. Let's see if we can hit these
Right.
3 or 4 pizza places that we haven't hit before that get pretty good ratings, or the New York chopped cheese. You don't find that
Yep.
outside of New York. There's things like that where you go and you go, okay, New York is known for this, or it's really famous. I want to go try that out. Or I want to try the restaurant that's only there in New York City. So, I think a lot of people do that. They don't just plan a trip. I'm going on a pizza trip. I'm going on a barbecue crawl. Some of them do that, but me, I try to incorporate it wherever I'm going. Like I'm going
Right.
to in a week and a half, we're going to Athens, Greece, and we're going to do a cruise. So all right, we're going to be in Athens. Here's 4 or 5 places I want to try, that day we're in Athens. I can't try everything. Like you said,
Right.
you couldn't try it all in probably 3 weeks in New York City, but there's some places I want to highlight and pick. And,
Well,
that's another place that has,
being a
yeah.
pizza fan, you should see what kind of pizza you can find in Athens.
Well, Greek pizza, I don't know if Greek pizza in America is different than Greek pizza in Greece because
Yep.
they do have Greek pizza. It's different than New
Right.
York style. So it's kind of like a cross between, a really thicker dough and all that. So it's, a little bit different. So I think I'm going to have to try to find a pizza spot to try it out too. But, plus I want to get some, gyros and stuff like that and other type of stuff that they're really known for too. But definitely, that's how I plan. When I go on, all right, here's where I'm going. I want to try some stuff. you know, I do the same thing with barbecue. If I'm going to Texas, I'm going to try to pick some spots that are known
Right.
for barbecue, but other stuff as well. But I think that a lot of I want to talk a little bit about the one bite guy, Dave Portnoy. I don't know if you watch any of his stuff, but he does, he's kind of made it big now where he goes around and does all these pizza reviews. And, wherever he's going, he'll do, a week's worth of pizza reviews. He runs in, does his little review. He's got a different, taste on what he likes, and he promotes what he likes. He likes his
Hmm.
more well done, more New Haven style, and but he will go and try other things. And he's started to spread it out more where he'll do a Detroit pie and have what he likes about it and start working on it. Before he would just kind of, when he first started, just if it wasn't a New Haven style pizza, he just would give it a bad review. But now he's
Right.
starting to spread out. But he's doing he started it last year where he's doing a pizza fest in New
Hmm.
York. And he's doing it again this year. And I think that's a pretty cool, that would be something I would go to. I just can't do it this year because they have so many different uh, restaurants from all over. He's got some from New Jersey, some from New Haven, some from New York and Brooklyn and all that. That would be something I could go see myself going for a couple days and try and see how much pizza I could eat in one day. Would that
Yep.
be something you'd look at doing?
I think I would. I don't know if I could I don't know if Tanya would follow me on a trip like that, but I would definitely be interested in a pizza exploration for sure.
Yeah, where you can try all these different ones because
Yep.
they're bringing them all into one spot because he's got some pretty heavy hitters from, like you said, I think even Frank Pepe is going to be down there and some of the others from New Haven, some of the bigger names from New Jersey and New York and from all around. So I think something like that is pretty cool. Like I said, I watch his videos and there's some stuff I don't agree with him on, and there's some stuff that I can, but you got to admit, the ones that he gives a good score to, those guys get hit with business that they never thought they'd have before.
I bet. I'm not familiar with Dave, but I will check him out. I'll add him to my
Just
list today
well,
because
go
I've
on
been
the YouTube
stacking.
and do the
Yep.
one bite. Just check out one bite pizza, and it'll come up. And that's what he does 5 a week. He'll go into if he's going somewhere for any kind of event because it's Barstool Sports is what he owns,
Right.
and he'll just go around and do pizza reviews, all the local pizza places.
I'll check it because I've been repopulating my a subscription list on YouTube with pizza, and I haven't come across his yet. I don't think.
Well, and all he
I
does is the
will.
reviews. He doesn't make pizza. He's not a pizza expert. He just goes
Right.
around but he'll go to like five, if he's in, let's just say, he's in, last week he was in New Hampshire, someplace in New Hampshire. So, he'll go around to five or six different pizza spots and do a review. And,
Okay.
the ones that come to the top the way he likes them, it all of a sudden, man, they get tons of people in there. So that's cool. But like I said, he's doing these pizza fests now, and that kind of thing
Right.
would, appeal to me. You go there on a Saturday, you got 30 different pizza places with 30 different styles of pizza you can go try, so that's just, it's all in one spot. You don't have to drive all over the place looking for it.
Right. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big barbecue fest. If they did something like that somewhere where they brought all different kinds of barbecue, not just a KCBS event where everybody's barbecue is the same.
Right.
If they had different, styles and kinds of barbecue, so you could try them all instead of going, oh, this guy's, KCBS barbecue is the same as this guy's KCBS barbecue. That's not fun to me. It's trying the different stuff.
Yep.
So you do a lot of, like I said, you said the experimenting. Do you just focus, like you're focusing on Detroit right now? Do you just take your time and say, I want to perfect it my way, and then you move on to something else? Or do you continually making different stuff?
Uh, my game plan is to work through one at a time. I may make some stuff along the way because, like, I'm getting ready to start on New York style, but I've got six dough balls of Neapolitan in the refrigerator right now, that I can make whenever. They're getting ready to go to the freezer where I can have Neapolitan on demand. But I like to focus on one at a time. That's been the learning method for me that I get the best results out of. And I don't know how many times it's going to take me to get it sometimes. I played around with this Detroit and I tweaked the recipe and I made notes as I went. So I would have a baseline and I never tweaked more than one or two things at a time because it's hard to figure out what went wrong or what didn't or what went right if you've tweaked a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
So I've I've pretty much got my Detroit where I want it. And the Detroit, there's this the Detroit's the one I tackled first because that dough for the Detroit pizza, in my opinion, serves three purposes. Number one, Detroit pizza. But you can use that same dough to make any kind of pan pizza you want and put the sauce on the bottom and top it like a normal pizza. And then you've got a beautiful pan pizza. And the third bit of good news about that dough is you can make a beautiful focaccia with that same dough. That dough, I like to make my focaccia with a little bit higher hydration to get a little bit more open crumb than I would for the pizza dough, but that's a very minor tweak in the recipe to convert that same dough to focaccia. So I like to do a deep dive on one style. That way I've got a firm and great understanding of it when I'm done. And it's easy to go back to at that point. I won't have to go back and look at notes so much or remember what I did. By the time I've gone through that style process 4, 5, 6, 7 times, I've got it up here at that point, and I don't feel like I need to tweak to go back to it.
I think I saw, it was maybe a Netflix show about pizza. There was one place in Rome that actually makes their pizza out of like a focaccia. They make it like that, and then that's their specialty. It is that thicker, more. They make it like when it comes out of the oven. They pre-bake it, and then they put the toppings on, and then finish it off. But it
Right.
looks like focaccia, so it's and they're unique, and they sell out all the time. So it's kind of
Well, that's another little bit of the process on my Detroit pizza that makes it non-traditional is I par bake my dough. a little bit. I give it 7 or 8 minutes because I get better results on the thickness of the crust all the way across. When you put that, I've played also with saucing before the cook and saucing after the cook, but there's a lot. Once again, like I said, you have to make it yours.
Yeah. It definitely, it's like anything with cooking, you can use a recipe as a baseline. And
Right.
then, even if you buy a pre-bought seasoning, sometimes you can, okay, well, I like some of the flavors of it, but it needs a little bit more salt or whatever. So you kind of, make it your own, you use their
Exactly.
base and then you make it your own. So let's get into equipment now, because I think that's one of the things I see growing. And, I've got the pizza group on Facebook. And me and Luca kind of put together a couple years ago, and that thing is just exploding. I get, 20, 25 people a day wanting to join that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, the people that making their own pizza. It's not just people who love pizza and will go out and eat it, it's people that actually are making it in their backyard or in their kitchen, and they want to learn and they want to know how to develop, and especially about the equipment. So you can make pizza in your regular oven in your kitchen, no problem. But
Yep.
now, people want these specialized ovens. They want the wood fire, they want the, gas fire, and they want a combination. I know you've had a few different ones over the years. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought about this before we started today. I've had 5 different pizza ovens now. And my overall opinion on this is probably going to be a little unpopular, but what if you want to get into a backyard pizza oven scenario without spending an awful lot of money, you're going to be limited to cooking Neapolitan style pizzas on it. Most of these, especially if you get a gas fire, I like gas fired. I've had 2 wood fired ovens and I've had several gas fired ovens. I prefer the gas fired for multiple reasons, but the ability of these smaller, less expensive ovens to cook at temperatures below 650 degrees is very limited. So it's going to be difficult to cook a Detroit style pizza in a wood fired or a gas fired pizza oven, depending on what you have. I'm not going to tell you it can't be done, because it can. Where there's a will, there's a way. But you have to, if you've got a gas oven, you're going to have to turn the gas on and off and get your oven hot and then cook on the downswing. It's these pizza ovens, these less expensive pizza ovens, especially the small ones like the Rock Box and some of these smaller ones. They're designed to cook that Neapolitan style pizza, and they excel at it. They're very good at the Neapolitan style pizza. But for these ovens, these ovens make it a little more difficult to cook some of the other style pizzas that you might want to cook at 500 degrees or even lower, like a Chicago deep dish pizzas cooked in the 4 to 450 range. I think it's cooked around 400 degrees or 425 for up to 45 minutes. It's a longer, slower cook because of the way that pizza's made. But that kind of pizza is very hard to cook in one of these ovens if you're unable to keep that temperature steady and keep it that low. But there's a lot of stuff out there now. And that's one of the reasons we're seeing the explosion in pizza interest is these pizza ovens are becoming more readily available. I think the starting price point that you're going to be at on most of them, I don't know if I've seen anything out there for less than $5.99. Do you know if there's anything out there for less than $600?
Well, as far as like the Oni knockoffs and stuff like that, the smaller ones there are, but I usually don't suggest those. But um, ones that are going to be decent, have a decent stone that you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to worry about, things breaking on it right away, or that's actually going to retain heat and not, just these that are just metal, that are on Amazon for $200. I mean, I never
Right.
suggest, or the ones you could buy at Aldi or whatever.
Yeah.
People will always go, "Oh man, I got this one for $200 and it's
Right.
great." It's like, well, you don't really understand the thermodynamics of
Right.
it, or
Exactly.
how long that's going to last. You might be able to cook, 10 pizzas in it,
Yeah.
for a couple of
Your
weeks.
home ovens is a really great tool for cooking most pizza, just not
Yeah,
Neapolitan pizza. And
right. Well, but
your
let's go.
Kamado is
That's what I was
another
going to
good
say.
tool.
Now let's
Yeah.
talk about, because you have cooked plenty of pizzas on your Kamados and
Yep.
other your pellet grills can do it.
Hmm.
And I do it too. I prefer sometimes on those, even though if you buy a store-bought dough at your local, grocery store, those aren't high
Yep.
heat doughs.
They're
At
not.
Publix, you can go to their bakery and you can buy the pre-made dough and make your
Yep.
pizza. Sometimes those are great for quick cooks. You decide, hey, I want to make a pizza today and I don't have time to make my own dough. You go grab one of those, but you got to cook those at around 350, 400 max, because they'll
Yep.
burn and taste like garbage. So, but your Kamado Joes, your pellet grills, and are great pizza ovens too. So,
They are.
and how you've cooked a bunch on those, so it's and I have a pizza oven too. I got the Arc, the Gosney Arc XL as
Right.
well. I prefer gas for one of those pizza ovens too, because you don't have to mess with trying to keep that temperature right by putting the wood in. The wood's messy, the ashes get everywhere. Um, the residue is messier because of all the carbon that's in it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of benefits of having gas over wood.
Well, when you're cooking it north of 650 degrees, you're not getting any flavor benefit from the wood. Uh,
Right.
if I was cooking pizzas in the 400 and 500 degree range and had a large enough wood fired oven where I could pull that off, that would be a different story. But those ovens are really expensive. We're talking a
Yeah.
difference. I'm talking pizza ovens that are north of $3,000
Yeah.
to be able to do that, and that's out of the reach of most backyard people. Uh,
Hmm.
not everybody. There are people out there that can do that, but the larger part of the community is in the sub $1,000 pizza oven range, and there aren't any out there that I'm aware of that can run at the lower temperatures consistently.
And like you said, I think a lot of people have that misconception of, because you're using wood, you're going to get that wood flavor. But when you're cooking over, you know, 600 degrees, the smoke's gone. There's no smoke
Right.
flavor to that.
Right.
It's just heat, and you're not going to get any added flavor from the wood as far as that goes. Even when they cook on coal-fired ovens, you're not getting the coal taste. You're getting that they're able to control the heat better.
Right.
That's about it. They're able to get a little
Exactly.
bit hotter, or they get it to a certain temperature and can hold it there. So yeah, I mean that's
I think part of the draw on the wood fire and the coal fire is when you walk into a place like Angelo's where there's a coal fired oven going,
yeah,
you can smell that when you walk in the door.
right,
So
yeah,
the aroma's there, but it's not coming from your pizza.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or and those things do look cool. Those big wood-fired pizza ovens. When you walk into
Yeah.
there's a place off of Times Square that we went to. I think it was Don Antonio's. They've got that big, ceramic wood-fired oven there that they cook all their stuff on. But like you said, it's huge, and they can
Yep.
put 7 or 8 pizzas in there at once, and they
Right.
can keep
Or
that fire
more.
going. And it's not something you want to put on your backyard, because it's not not going to work the same. I mean, I had the old the Gosney dome when it first came out, and I
Mhm.
tried cooking with wood in it a couple times, and it was just a pain in the butt, and it didn't give me any benefits, like you said.
Yeah, you spend more time cutting your splits down to a size that'll fit in that oven than you do
Right.
cooking. And there's some companies that sell splits that are cut down that small, but they're really expensive. And, it's just, to me, the work that went into dealing with a wood fired oven here, I was not willing to put the work in to make it successful, because there's an added time element involved. Anytime you want to cook on a wood fired oven, you got to get it fired up early, and then
Yeah.
you've got to get it stabilized in in the temperature range you want to cook in and get it ready to go, and make sure that it's going to hold temperature long enough. A good oven's going to hold temperature for a long time. But once again, these ovens that have a lot of thermal mass with a lot of brick floor and a lot of thermal mass on top, they're on up there in price.
And they take a long time to get up to temp, like you said.
They do.
All that stuff has to heat up. Well,
the surface,
and then you got to
surface.
Then you got to clean it up. That's the thing I hate.
Yeah, clean up. I never worried too much about that. I never spent more than 2 minutes cleaning up. Let the oven cool. I've got a handheld dust broom that I sweep the ash out, and I'm done. That's all the cleanup that's involved in one of those ovens, unless you've had an accident and dumped pizza toppings off in there, and that's a little bit different story. But we're all professionals, and we don't do that, right, Darren?
No, yeah, we don't do that anymore. We don't slide the pizza in and all this stuff flies off the top. Nobody's ever had that happen.
It's going to happen to everybody at some point in the game.
Yeah. Especially
this podcast is sponsored by Fire and Water Travel Services. Let us help plan the foodie vacation of a lifetime for you. Whether it's an ocean or river cruise, tours of Europe, all-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean, anything you need, we can help plan it and customize it for you. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, check out fireandwatertravel.com, and also check out our YouTube channel for videos on travel.
Yeah. Especially when you're learning how to get that pizza off the peel.
Right.
When you're using a high hydration dough that just likes to stick to everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What's your favorite method of getting your pizza off the peel? Because that's probably the number one thing people run into.
Well, I've got a couple of aluminum peels that are perforated that I like. The trick to getting the pizza off the peel is to have flour on the bottom of the pizza and on the peel. And I've gotten to where I make up a little mix of what I call dusting flour, which is I'll use a small mix of rice flour, semolina flour.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't think I've used rice flour in a while. I'm pretty much going pure semolina flour on that. I don't use cornmeal. You'll see a lot of people recommend cornmeal, and I don't like that, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But the semolina flour, it gives the bottom of the pizza, even if you've got a fairly high hydration dough, once you've stretched it and gotten it on your peel and topped it, you pick the peel up and give it a little shimmy and make sure that it's going to slide on the peel before you walk to your oven with it. And you shouldn't have any problem. Most pizza doughs, I've made pizza doughs. Any pizza that I'm going to launch on a peel has never been more than 70% hydration. And to me, a 65% hydration dough, I've never really had any issues with it sliding on the peel. And the true authentic Neapolitans are done at 58 and 60%, and they're not gonna stick to your peel very much either, especially if there's a little bit of flour on the bottom of it. So when I'm stretching my dough, I'm working on my work table, and I've got flour down there where I'm getting flour on the bottom. You don't want excessive flour on the bottom of your dough because it will burn and taste bad. But the perforated peel gives you the ability to give that pizza a little shimmy on the peel, and it shakes most of that excess flour off before you go to the oven with it. But if during the process of learning to get a pizza off the peel, it's perfectly okay to use parchment paper. I'm not a fan. Parchment paper burns up at Neapolitan temperatures. It scorches, and it makes it parchment paper is designed to use at like 500 degrees and less. So it's going to scorch up in a Neapolitan oven. But my suggestion for learning that process is to try it. During my efforts to learn what we're talking about right here, I made dough that I never cooked. I would mix up a batch of dough. I would stretch my stretch my dough into the round form, and I would put it on the peel, and I would practice this. I might make a 2 kilogram flour batch of dough to get 12 balls that I could shape and practice this launch, and then just throw the dough away. I know that's wasteful, but it's a learning tool. And
Yeah.
I didn't destroy any pizzas in the process of doing that. And I get my confidence up. Once you put the toppings on the pizza, the dynamics are a little different. When you've sauced that pizza, that there's a difference there, but you got to practice that. And there's no substitute for practice. Practice and experience is a big thing here. And it doesn't come as easy as you might think it does. And that's one of the reasons I'm diving into this efforts, because it's far more challenging than barbecue.
Yeah.
And
like
I'm enjoying it.
Like you said, once you change the dynamics, you may put the dough on the peel and shake it. Yeah, it shakes good. Then you put your sauce and toppings on.
Yeah.
It's totally different now. You added weight to it and everything. So it's
at this point in my game, I don't put my dough on the peel until I've topped it. I've got a stainless steel work table here, and I'm working on a floured surface, and I don't pull my dough up onto the peel until it's been topped. And because if you pull the dough up onto the peel, that's giving it an opportunity to sit there and allow the flour that's on the bottom to absorb water that's in the dough and make it less slippery and slidey. So
it makes it into glue.
I don't put my pizza on the peel until it's topped and ready to go to the oven. You don't want the pizza to sit on that peel for any longer than it has to.
Yeah.
If you're launching with a wooden peel, you can get away with more than you can on the aluminum peel, but the wooden peel is not going to help you get that flour off the bottom before you go to the oven with it.
Right. But I think that's the key. I think a lot of people do. They'll put their dough on the peel, then build their pizza, and then all of a sudden all the toppings slide off into the bottom of the
and that's fine if you're going to use if you're going to use parchment paper, it doesn't matter. You can build the pizza right on the peel.
So you talked a little bit, you said you want to get back to cornmeal, and semolina flour is similar, but it's a lot smaller granules because what the cornmeal does, it's bigger granules, and it just kind of like putting like little rubber or like balls underneath it, right? So it lets it move because it's dry.
It does.
But
makes it easy to shake. It makes it easy to shake that pizza off of there, but it burns and it tastes bad.
Yeah, it tastes bad.
I don't like the flavor of burnt cornmeal. The semolina flour, what little bit of it gets in there, it just kind of browns, but it does not turn black and scorch like cornmeal does.
Well, and it's got a different texture too.
Right.
It has a lighter texture. Cornmeal has that really rough texture to it, and you can taste it when you, like you said, it burns and it's got a real coarse texture to it, and it doesn't taste like you're eating pizza anymore. It tastes like you're eating, a burnt piece of cornbread. So
it's not good, and I don't recommend. I don't keep cornmeal. My cornmeal's for making cornbread, and that's about all I do with it.
Now we've tried it. I've tried it before, and like you said, I think because that's what everybody says. Oh, use that and it'll come right off. But you're sacrificing the flavor of your pizza. You know, you might as well just go buy a pre-made dough or something if you're gonna do that. You're taking the time to make your own dough and all that stuff. Do it the right way, or do it
when you're going through all of the labors of love that you have to go through to make this pizza. Don't cut corners with something like cornmeal. Learn the process and practice it. Don't hesitate to practice. Nothing can replace the practice. Like I said, going through making that process of making the dough to put it on the peel, you're also learning the process of stretching that dough, which is one of the most difficult things for me in learning to make hand-tossed pizzas, is how to stretch the dough properly to get an even thickness all the way across, where you don't have a thin spot in the middle and you don't have too much air, too much of a cornicione on the outside. Getting that right, learning how to do that. Those are the things that I have found to be the more difficult part of making these pizzas, is learning to launch and learning to shape the dough.
Yeah. And because and here's a trick I learned a long time ago. If the dough is too cold, if you pull it right out of the refrigerator, it's going to be
Yep.
hard to shape that dough because it wants
Yep.
to stay like it's like a rubber ball.
It's
You'll
elastic.
you'll it's elastic and it comes right back. You can roll it
Right.
out into a 12-inch shape and then turn around and come back and it's back down to 8 inches
Right.
so
My the best thing you can do is if you've had dough in the refrigerator is give it 4 hours. Bring it out of the refrigerator, give it 4 hours, maybe even
yeah,
5. You've probably can keep it out for up to 6. But and if you find your dough wanting to snap back after you stretch it, just let it sit for 10 minutes and then try it again.
yeah,
As that dough is actually warming up as you try to stretch it because it's coming thin. But the elasticity, the gluten will relax as the dough gets warmer. So, and you can also make doughs that don't go in the refrigerator, and that's what I recommend to start with when you're learning to make pizzas. Don't go straight to the refrigerated cold ferments. Work on doughs that are fermented completely at room temperature, and when you do that, you don't have the elasticity problem to deal
yeah.
with. So skip that part. When you're going to ask your friends who have been doing pizza for a long time, they're going to try to give you all their best practices, and you're going to get best practices from 5 different people, and you're going to find yourself trying to incorporate all of them at one time, which is not a
Right.
good plan. Uh,
No.
the a room temperature dough, I make what I call a 2-hour dough, which is I start my mixer at noon, and I've got pizza in the oven at 2. And that's a great place to start. It's not the best tasting dough, but it's good. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. Bad pizza, I'm not going. It's not even bad pizza. It's good pizza. It's not great pizza
Right.
because the fermentation, the long fermentations build a flavor that you can't get elsewhere. But the in the beginning, you start with the basics and don't introduce the complex parts of the problem until you've got some experience. Cold fermenting dough is my favorite way to do it, and that's the only way I do it in most cases now. But that's not where I would start or where I'd
Yeah.
recommend starting. Right?
You definitely want to get your basics down before you start going and trying some new stuff. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about that as far as equipment goes. If you already have a pellet grill or a Kamado Joe out there, I highly recommend you start cooking on that, your pizzas, or even in your oven before you start looking at getting a specialty oven.
Darren, that's the best piece of advice you can give anybody that wants to get into this. I see this in the pizza forums that I participate in quite frequently. Somebody comes in there, they're gung ho, they want to buy a pizza oven, and none of these people take the time to recommend. Well, first thing before you buy the pizza oven, find out if you like making pizza, because if it
Right.
works out that you don't like making pizza from scratch, the pizza oven's not going to help you. And the pizza oven's not going to make or break your pizza. What's going to make or break your pizza is what you put into it before it went into the oven. And
Exactly.
that's the most sage advice you can give anybody is learn to make the pizza first, then figure out getting a pizza oven, because that pizza oven that you're going to go buy, the only advantage it's going to give you right off the bat is the ability to make Neapolitan style pizza. Your home oven with a quarterite baking stone in there is going to give you every other pizza style that you're ever going to want to make right in your home oven or in your Kamado. Uh, I've come to the point where I feel that the Dojo for me isn't, the Dojo accessory from Kamado
Right.
Joe. For
Yeah.
me, that's a requirement. I've gotten to the point where making pizza on the Kamado Joe, I don't want to make it without that.
Yeah.
it browns the top of my pizza much better than not having it. But the oven, learn to make the pizza first before you buy the oven. Then by then you'll know what kind of oven you want, and you could even simulate making Neapolitan pizzas in your home oven. Andrus Lagsden from the Baking Steel has got tons of videos, and his book even show you how to make Neapolitan style pizza in your home oven using the broiler for part of the cook to get that
Right.
temperature you're looking for. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I said. That's the, I see it in my Facebook group all the time. People join. I'm looking to
Mhm.
buy an oven. Well, have you ever made pizzas?
Yep.
No, I haven't even started. But I think I need an oven first. No, it's
No.
like the cart before the horse. The ultimate cart before the
Yeah.
horse is buying
It's
that pizza
true.
oven before you
That's
even
not what
started
people
making
want to hear,
pizza.
though. People don't want to
No.
hear it.
Well,
And
because their neighbor
when
got one or their
yeah,
friend got one, they go in
the oven's suddenly going to give them the ability to produce world class pizza, and it's just
right.
not true.
It's
Your
not.
pizza game depends on how well you make pizza, not how well your oven cooks it. So
Yeah. If you
it's
watch
hard to convince people of that.
if you watch the any of those specials on Netflix or whatever about pizza chefs, they
Yeah,
don't go, this pizza oven is what made me a pizza chef. No,
right,
it's not it. It's like any
right.
good chef of any kind, it doesn't matter what equipment they have, they can make
Yeah,
their barbecue or pizza or
and
whatever they're cooking.
these folks that get that pizza oven, when they get that pizza oven, their next question is, okay, where can I buy some pre-made dough that work well
Yeah,
on this pizza oven? And
exactly.
and it's very hard to go say to that guy, anything you buy at Publix or Walmart is not going to cook in that oven. It's going to scorch on the bottom. It's going to turn
Exactly.
black, and you're not going to be happy with that.
Go
You
read the
got to make
directions.
If you're going to buy a pizza oven, you have to make the commitment to learning to make the dough from scratch. If you
Right.
don't want to do that, do not buy a pizza oven under any
Exactly.
circumstances.
Well,
None of them.
I think we can leave off at that. So we should have
Yep.
started with that. But then
I don't know.
yeah, you don't want to let the air out of people's, bubbles, but
Right.
it's true. I mean, you got to start anything you do, you want to start where you're supposed to start. You got to start from the basics. How do I make a
Yep.
dough? And if you want to make pizza from scratch, you got to learn how to make dough. That's the whole
Well,
thing about pizza is the dough. The toppings and all that crap are, can be interchanged. It's, making the dough right and the way you want it. And, you got to experiment and do that first. So,
well, maybe one of the things we ought to close with there along that line is I've got a bookshelf behind me here. I've got several great books that I highly recommend for people that want to learn to make pizza. The Ken Forkish book called "The Elements of Pizza" is a good one. The Tony Gemignani book, "The Pizza Bible," is a good one to learn how to make doughs. Uh, there's another one called "Mastering Pizza" that I can't remember the author for that one. Uh,
well, I'll put all the links. Just shoot me a text with all the names of the books, and I'll put links
yeah,
in the description so people can just click on them and take a look at them because,
the
yeah,
the primary one I think is "The Elements of Pizza" by Ken Forkish. That would be the first one I would recommend. But once again, I think you even before you buy that book, you need to make the commitment. I want to learn to make good pizza from
right,
scratch because, and also along with that book, you're going to need to look at some YouTube videos because the things that are described in that book when it comes to folding and stretching and folding the dough, it's hard to understand what's going on there from pictures. You need to
yeah,
see that in video. So keep that in mind when you buy a book that's talking about stretching and folding dough, that you're going to need to go to YouTube and get a visual on what's going on there.
yeah. It's always good to visually
Yep.
see what's going on. I definitely do that. I do that with just about everything anymore.
Right.
It's good to read something in a book and try to understand it, but when you see it being done, it's
Yes,
totally
it makes
different.
a big difference.
Yeah,
I got over a lot of hurdles when I was trying to learn to make sourdough bread by watching some videos of the
right.
stretching and folding process of the dough. And you don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment to make pizza dough. A KitchenAid stand mixer with a dough hook is a nice accessory, but it's not something you have to have. You can knead this dough by hand, especially if you're doing a long ferment.
Yeah. The biggest issue I know with any kind of baking, and especially with pizza dough, is understanding that the measurements are very, very important.
Yes,
And I think one of the things I heard you say before is that weigh your ingredients. Don't use cups
absolutely.
or tablespoons or teaspoons. Weigh it, get a
Yeah.
scale that has grams and weigh it, because that's
And
science plays a lot bigger role in baking and doughs and breads.
Early on here, I mentioned the fact that the ratios are critical, and the weight of a cup of flour. Let's say, for instance, if you're going to start a six dough ball batch like I've done here that uses a kilogram or uses 1,000 grams of flour to start with. If you try to measure that out in cups, you can, but if you try to measure out 5 cups of flour or 6 cups of flour, and just do that 3 or 4 times and weigh it, and you'll find that you're going to be off as much as 5% one way or the other. 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough to dramatically change the characteristics of your pizza dough. And if your dough seems too sticky one time and it seems too dry the next time, and you're not weighing your ingredients, you won't know where the problem is. You do need a kitchen scale. And I weigh my water, I weigh my flour, I weigh my salt, and I weigh my yeast. And I also weigh the diastatic malt powder. If I'm using it, I weigh the olive oil. That way I've got consistency every time. I know exactly how much of my ingredients went in. If you're using a measuring cup to measure the flour, you'll never have that consistency.
It just saves you the frustration of, like you said, the inconsistency. One time if you I use the same recipe every single time, but I'm doing cups and stuff. If you're using weights, you're going to get it. It's going to come out the same. And that's what they do. The professionals, when they make bread, when they make, you go to a professional bakery, they don't just, 5 cups. This, they're weighing everything out.
Well, and the King Arthur, I follow a lot of King Arthur flour recipes, and I have several of their books as well. If you're using a measuring cup to measure their recipes, they tell you what you have to do is you have to sift the dough into the measuring cup and then level it off with a knife. That's the only way you're going to get somewhat consistent weights for a cup of flour, is to do it like that. If you're scooping the flour out of a tub, you're never going to get the same weight in a cup of flour. Yeah, you're going to end up with more flour because that flour packs when you scoop it. So, get a kitchen scale. The kitchen scale is a requirement, in my opinion. That's the only tool I think that you have to do this effectively.
Well, I'm going to leave links to those books that you mentioned in the comments below. So if you guys are interested, check them out. YouTube, just, go ahead and search for, any type of pizza you're looking for, but, make sure you follow those instructions, because like I said, it's very important to use weights and those instead of cups and all that. And also, to make sure you're using warm water and, follow, read some of these books, because there are certain ways that it's going to help you produce a lot better pizza, and you won't get frustrated, and it'll keep you excited and keep you wanting to do it. That way you won't, that new pizza oven you just bought without trying to make dough, you'll still use it, 6 months down the road instead of trying to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Well, thanks again, John. I know we've been over an hour, but we could talk pizza all day. I'm sure, things like this that we get all excited about, but I really appreciate it. I thank you for joining me, and I'm looking at all that bourbon behind you. It's getting me thirsty. So
yeah,
I know you're a big bourbon aficionado. My son is like that too. He doesn't drink much at all, but he does like a good bourbon, and he hunts down the deals he can do. Someday we'll do a podcast episode on all the different types of bourbon you got behind you, and some of the others you got. Some of the others you got hidden that you don't want anybody to know about.
Oh, I don't have too many of those anymore. But I've got enough to keep me going for a few weeks back there.
Well, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. And is there anything else you want to talk about pizza? I think we covered most of it for now.
I think we've hit everything anybody would want to know about getting started.
Yeah, I don't want to get into toppings because that's all personal preference.
Yep.
I mean, I think, that's, the seasonings and stuff like that are not what, you can put anything on a pizza. I'm not one to say you can't put pineapple on pizza, but, like I said,
the crust is the most important part of the pizza. So everything that goes on top of it's personal, but learning learning to make that crust is the crux of making any good pizza.
Exactly.
Make the dough.
Well, thanks for joining me again, John. I'll definitely see you on another episode. We'll talk about some
Awesome.
other stuff, and I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on the Fire and Water Cooking and Travel podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all that. And check out all the links to the books below John and I talked about. Check out mancavemeals.com. And also check out fireandwatercooking.com and fireandwatertravel.com. I'll see you on the next Fire and Water Cooking and Travel podcast.